Good evening, friends. On behalf of our Readers and Writers Club, we are delighted to have Baisali Chatterjee Dutt and Chitrotpala Mukherjee. We call her Mitudi. So Baisali will be in conversation with Mitudi on her new book named Reflection and Mosaic of Memories. Very quickly, I would love to introduce Chitrotpala Mukherjee first. She was born in Ranchi in 1940. She did her early education in Bangalore and later moved to Shantiniketan, where she completed her schooling. Her college years were spent in Kolkata and she graduated with English honors from Lady Brabourne College and later finished her MA from Calcutta University. She worked for about a year with the Japanese embassy in New Delhi in the political department. On returning to Calcutta, she joined the Indian Airlines and worked with them initially in Calcutta. Later on, she moved to Bombay and then retired from the headquarters in Delhi in 1995. Now, post retirement, she pursued her passion for art and founded Art Space India in collaboration with Bridget Fraser of Art Space UK. Art Space in India was an initiative for promoting and nurturing young and aspiring artists. This included setting up of a gallery in the city and an art residency in Baripur in the outskirts of Calcutta. The Baripur residency had a full-fledged ceramic unit. Gunter Grass, one of the foremost writers of our time, spent some creative time at Baripur. He visited the art residency again after receiving the Nobel Prize and churned out a few pieces at the ceramic setup. Thank you, Midudi, for coming on board and for sharing your work
Thank you,
with
Shashank.
us. And now, very quickly, I would love to introduce Boishali. Boishali Chatterjee, the former columnist and agony aunt for Mother and Baby magazine and contributed to Parent and Baby magazine. She has compiled and edited 2 volumes for the Chicken Soup for the Indian Soul series and contributed to 10 of their other titles. Her book, Shorbori Datto, The Design Diva, is a biography on one of the Calcutta's leading luminaries in the fashion world. Her latest book, Three is a Lonely Number, is a novella in verse. Her poetry has been published in various anthologies and magazines, prints, as well as online. Her other great passion is theatre. She has performed with some of the country's top English theatre groups such as Art and Theatre Club in Bangalore, Royal Padamsi, Ace Productions in Bombay, and of course Kolkata's The Red Curtain, Theatrician, and Spondon. Now, she has adapted popular literature as well as written original scripts for performance purposes, donning the hat of director for many of these plays as well. Currently, she is the creative consultant and drama teacher at Sri Sri Academy, Kolkata, as well as drama and creative writing facilitator at the Creative Arts Academy. Boishali, thank you so much for agreeing to doing the session with me today. So I would
Always a
like
pleasure.
Mithuji
Always
to
a pleasure.
join Boishali, and Boishali, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Vaishali, after hearing your record of what all you have done and what all you are doing, I feel very silly and
Not
small.
at all. I'm the one. Here I am,
No,
so
no.
eager to hear from you. I read your beautiful book. I've already had the distinct pleasure of going over to your house and engaging in an adda with you. And there's still so much more to learn from you, to talk about, to chat over. And I'm really, really so grateful that, I was given this honor and this
And may I just
joy,
say that,
delightful task of engaging you in conversation this evening.
yes, but I must say that after hearing all this, I'm very flattered that you have agreed to have this chat with me. So we shall start now from whatever you take over. Okay?
Absolutely. And, I think it's always nice to start at the beginning. And right now, the beginning is, a precursor to the book that we're here to talk about. And that is your other book called Reminiscence, which you so kindly gave me that day. And even this, you call this a memoir as well. I mean, like, why am I writing this memoir? So, this is also a kind of memoir, right? But so am I right in calling it a precursor to Reflections? Was Reflections the natural progression of Reminiscence?
Not quite. Actually, I wrote Reminiscence after I very sadly had to close down my uh, place in Baripur, which was doing very well. And but my husband had expired in 2005, and art market was really going down, and I'm not very much of a seller. I can't sell things too well. I love art. I really think that I've always been in love with art, but buying and selling is not my strong point. So at that time, I eventually realized that I'll have to close it. So, and move on. And so, but before I did that, I did start a gallery in town, and so that there I had a lot of which you must have noticed in the book, in that green book that I gave you, that
Yes,
the things that I did over there. That was a
right.
very, very joyous time. But then, in the beginning of the century, slowly the art market was going down, and as I said before, I'm not very much of a seller. So I decided that I'll hand it over to another person who's involved in art and can carry on from there. But he chose to later on sell it, and then I'm very happy to tell you that it has now been made into Ramakrishna Mission School.
Oh,
My,
oh.
I think that's a beautiful conclusion to my
Education
efforts.
plays a huge part in your life. I will come to that later. I do have I do want to talk about, I mean, like the fact that there are so many teachers in your family, and now it's so lovely to know that somehow it's come full circle with the art space becoming a school
I'm
now.
very proud of that. Very proud that my place is now is Ramakrishna Mission School.
Oh, that's just wonderful to know. But going back to the from reminiscences to reflections, I can't help but notice that both your books are single word titles, and they both start with the letter R. So was that a deliberate choice? Was it numerology? Is there something else there that we don't know about?
No, it's not exact. I never thought I did till now that both the books start with the letter R. But
Okay.
the first book, of course, was named because that was the name of the place that and reflections I have now I have doubts about that, because it is a bit arty kind of reflections, but what I really think I would like to call it that I was here. This occurred to me when I bought a book on the history of human life, from I don't remember recall the name exactly, and there is just a hand on a cave. It's a little picture of a hand on an ancient cave, and it just sort of says that I was here. So basically, my intention was to say that I was here, and all good, bad, and everything counted. I think life is a very great opportunity and a great experience. So, this is basically my way of saying I was here.
So if you look at it, it is your reflection of your life. I actually personally, I think it's a very beautiful choice for this book, because we don't just get reflections into a life well lived and well experienced, but it also plays on the fact that art played such a huge role in your life as well. So, and art and reflections is always something to do, has something to do with each other. So I actually thought that it was a very, very well chosen name, Reflections.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thank you.
No, not at all. Um, Now, reading your book, and of course, even from the previous interview that you had with Joshua, nature comes up quite a lot, and nature has played a very, very important part in your life. So, even in Baruipur, if you permit me, I would like to read out a passage from your book.
Sure.
Uh, yeah. This is from the Shanti Niketan chapter, if I'm not mistaken, page 37. One of the most redeeming features of my mind has been my ability to find joy and sometimes even ecstasy in nature. Maybe it was from my early childhood in Shanti Niketan, where I learned to identify the smells of sweet smelling flowers, Shuli in the mornings and Kamini in the evenings. Bokul, Belpul, Chamili, Juhi, Maloti, Madhubi, and Muchkundo in the evenings, and of course Kea, which was associated with snakes. Snakes seem to have a preference for sweet smelling evening flowers. I wonder why. Okay, I, the just rattling off the names over there just felt so poetic and so beautiful, and I could almost get a, like that heady scent from all those flowers hitting me at once. And going back to the to nature, even now, your present home, you live in a apartment now, but you're surrounded by plants. And I think you had said something to me to the lines of "Gach to amar bondhu." So, I mean, plants are my friends. So, where was this seed for this love for nature sown? Was it in your growing up years in Patna? Was it in Shantiniketan?
No, it was entirely, I think, in Shantiniketan. Bangalore was quite, our school was quite beautiful. It's not like what it is now. I think we have given a picture of the present school as it is now, Baldwin Girls High School. But that had a lot of greenery. It had flowers, those very bright yellow flowers, which I've only seen in Bangalore and in
Yes,
Delhi.
yes, those
Delhi,
beautiful, yeah,
plenty in winter around the
yeah.
place. So, so I think that nature actually affected me, or nature got under my skin only in Shantiniketan. Because when I went to Shantiniketan, that was on in 1950 when I was only 10 years old. And
Right.
then people, we never wore shoes or chappals or anything. Bare feet was the normal thing to do. And everything was open, not so many buildings, not the present Shantiniketan. If you look at Binod Bihari's um, book, which recently there was an exhibition and accompanying book, along with
Right.
different. It was like that. There are areas of long open areas towards Kopai if you walked in a particular direction. And on both sides, there would be tal trees, very here and there. And it's typical of the reflections that Vinod Bihari has painted in his.
Mm.
It was perhaps a little more vegetated than what he had done or he had seen. And also, because we are bare feet, we are in touch with the earth. I
Right.
think that for 10 years, if you do that, something happens, and then you feel very close to nature. And I used to love sneaking out of the house at odd hours when my mother was sleeping or early evening and just go for a walk by myself and go among that shal vithi or just go further down. But I loved nature. I just grew to love nature.
And what better way to sneak out of the house than barefoot, I guess.
I'm telling you, it is great fun.
And it's amazing that you're talking about being barefoot all the time, especially those 10 years, because and how important it was. We're discovering that importance now. We hear about concepts like earthing, I mean, like where you deliberately take off your socks and your shoes and you connect with nature. But for all of you, it happened so naturally. I mean, like, you didn't even have to think
Absolutely,
twice about it.
absolutely. And I think that has been a very great contribution. And I'm much more firm barefoot now after having broken a number of limbs, etc. I feel perfectly all right if I'm barefoot still.
Right, right, right. So now the reason, like I said, I brought up nature right now is because it features so prominently in your book, because it played such a prominent role in your life as well. Even when the chapter where you talk about visiting different countries, so many. When you talk about a lot of the countries, you talk about the landscape as well. So, and you've even used a poem from one of my favorite poets. So, I just have to read that out with your, again, with your permission. Sylvia Plath, that beautiful poem that I am vertical.
Yes, yes. Sylvia Plath.
Yes, yes. I am vertical, but I'd rather be horizontal. I'm not a tree with my root in the soil, sucking up minerals and motherly love, so that each March I may gleam into leaf. Then the sky and I are in open conversation, and I shall be useful when I lie down finally. Then the trees may touch me for once, and the flowers have time for me. What a beautiful poem. I mean, and so much, I mean, like, it just talks about her longing for that touch with nature. So, when you conceptualize art space in Barupur, in your mind, did you already know what kind of a role nature was going to play?
Actually, Baruipur actually happened, and I'm in inverted commas. It
Okay.
happened because we had myself and my husband. We were both pretty penniless at that time, and we couldn't even afford to buy a good piece of land going quite cheap then. 24 lakhs or something of 24, I don't, lakhs and thousands, I get still get mixed up anyway. So we finally we bought this space outside Kolkata, and in
Right.
Kolkata, in Bombay and in Delhi, distance is nothing. You go miles to go from one place to another. But in Kolkata, 24 miles outside Kolkata is
Yeah.
quite a distance.
Yes.
But we went there and it was full of grass, very high grass, and lots of trees and kada, mati, and not very welcoming space, and except a little space, little house, just a sort of a for the Darwan to stay and keep the guntes and stuff. And we used to go there after we bought it, because this friend of ours, he offered us the place and said that try and develop it for the three of us, the two brothers and us. So
Right.
my husband was very enthusiastic because he used to sit and draw enormous number of houses. He used to do that sketches and
All right.
measure.
Okay.
So I was very keen that we get some space. So anyway, that is how our Baripu started. And I used to jump around in the long, high grass, not realizing there might be very, very dangerous snakes and things.
Hmm.
But then we turned it round, as I have explained in the book.
Yes, of course you did. And so beautifully too. I mean, like, where it just seems like nature was waiting to welcome you into that space. But now, of course, I mean, like, here you created that space with nature overlooking the space and also playing its part. And, but what's interesting is that you mentioned that when you decided to do this, you and your husband, I mean, like, didn't have so much money. So, where did you get the strength of conviction, and what made you say, no, this is something that we have to do? Was there something lacking in the Calcutta art space? Was there something lacking in the Indian art space? What made you decide that, no, we
No,
need an art space like this?
One of my friends from childhood, when she came to visit Art Space when it was full grown and working quite well, she had said one thing, that you have left Shantiniketan, but Shantiniketan hasn't left you, because it
Ah,
is. And she said that this I used to bring a truck full of red earth from Durgapur to to spread on the roads, and recall my early days of those that kind of landscape where everything was red and quiet, and
mm,
so
yes, yes.
that stayed with me somehow. My love for nature, love for trees, for uh, and I didn't, and also I was very sorry for my husband, because I realized that poor guy, he can't really afford to buy a decent space, so we might as well make a go of this, and it really worked. You've seen in my green book that later on we had so many things happening over there. Anyway,
Yeah, because it
this,
wasn't just about, I mean, like, art. It wasn't just about, canvases and painting. I mean, like, you had
no,
an
no.
active ceramic studio there as well.
No, when this happened, then what happened is that we had some friends in England. I have mentioned
Yes,
her.
Bridget Fraser.
Bridget. Bridget Fraser's daughter or niece came to India to to go to Shantiniketan. But I had to pick them up from Kolkata airport, bring them home. And I said, you all guys relax here for 2, 3 days, then I'll put you on the train to Shantiniketan. And I was asking them, what does your mother do? And she said, we have two barns. We have two barns and a lot of space, 6 or 7 acres of land, and that the barns have been turned into galleries. And every year during the Oxford Festival, art festival, which is around May, June, they have huge exhibitions. As it happened, then after we, so we thought about this, that, you know, till then we really hadn't thought in terms of having an art space or anything like that. I just wanted a cottage which was done with, what could we afford but tiles, because we couldn't afford a proper house. So I wanted a, in, can you imagine, chimney in Baripur? I said, I want a
Yes, those days it happened.
fireplace because I want to see the smoke coming out. So,
Yeah.
so it's quite silly, but then,
No,
you
but
ask,
why not? It's your own place that you're creating. So why
yeah,
not?
do whatever you feel like doing. But
Yes.
I did that. When we did make a house, and to come back to this thing, when we went to, once we were in, my husband was in France, and with him went to, after Paris, we went to London, and I said, we are so close to their space, let's go down. So we went down, and that very day, there was BBC interviewing Bridget, that in this space so far away, who comes to see your exhibition except some local people. And my husband popped in and said, I have just come from Calcutta.
So who
Just
comes? I mean, like people from across
and
the
BBC
land.
turned the camera on him, and he, of course, went. It was quite funny that way. Anyway, so after that, we got on afterwards when we were chatting and having tea and sandwiches with them after these BBC people had gone. We then and there decided that we could do something like this in Kolkata, near only space we had. So that is how the whole idea struck us. But Bridget, then we decided that Bridget and I will do an exhibition together,
Right.
art space, and call it Art Space India and Art Space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So when we did that, we had no space except the Baruipur space with its few trees, few am gach, kola gach, peara gach, and all that.
Yeah.
And we decided that there was no space to hang paintings, but we hung them on the trees. I think there's a picture of some picture in my
Oh,
green book
what
of
more do you need? What more do you need? I mean, like,
that's how it started.
gorgeous, gorgeous. I mean, like, I
Then
can
we
almost picture it in my mind's eye. So that's
And then
beautiful.
we had a joint exhibition. Three artists plus Bridget came down, and we had a
Yes.
joint exhibition, very kindly organized by Taj. No, they didn't. Modurima Sinha, who's looking after this, she let me have the exhibition, and it was before the day the Taj was what it is today. It had a
Okay.
proper play. No, it was quite long time ago. There are a lot of pictures in my green book of that opening. And
So
BBC,
beautiful,
by
the
that,
exchange of artists.
and British Council, I must say that British Council chipped in. I've forced them to. I went there and I said, you have to participate. You have to give us something, So they had one, we had some kind of a session with BBC, and then later on, they also helped us with this particular exhibition. From there, we went to Delhi. Delhi, I had another exhibition, which was very successful, and then the rest of the story.
Yes, then it took on a life of its own,
Yes,
thankfully.
yes, it grew on its.
Yes, that's great. Okay, now, as someone who loves to read poetry, recite poetry, and even tries to write poetry, one of the things that absolutely thrilled me about your book is that it's dotted with poetry and I mean, like whether full poems or a few lines from poems throughout the book. So I've already mentioned and read out Plath's poem, but you have Hughes, Eliot, Donne, Yeats, and so is this a nod to your background in English literature, or a nod to studying in Tagore land or Shantiniketan? This
I
use of
don't
poetry in your book, yeah.
Uh, I don't think so. The poems that are in my book, except one of Sylvia Plath, in reaction to which I wrote my poem saying that I don't want to die. I want to be up and be a tree and this sort
Right,
of thing. But other than that, I have taken little pieces. But the single poems, the single page poems are mine because, and also, I don't know, I have a very pretty good memory, visual memory, or other memories like something on death or something on something which has struck me, and it stays in my mind, and it
right,
sort of pops up now and then. Most unexpected times they pop up. So that is how I have referred to a number of. I've taken lines from some poems or some title for a chapter,
right.
like Love and Other Demons is not my title. It's the title by the God, South American writer, forgetting his name now. Famous, very famous man. Anyway, you know him pretty well. So the thing is that I don't know. As I said, I have not been a diarist or a writer who jots down, but there are times when I feel very strongly about something, and then I just jot down in on whatever piece of paper is available. But I managed towards the end, by the time I reached 80, by that time, I hadn't really thought of a book per se or what kind of shape it'll take. But when COVID came, and that was the year that I became 80, I got very afraid that I may not have time to record what I have experienced, that I have been here, the hand, that I was also here. And there was something, there were lots of things that were not very palatable or nice, but at the same time, there was a lot that was very nice. Mainly for me, it was nature. Nature had got into my blood. So, nature was very, very important to me. So that's when I started, and I hurriedly, with great difficulty, I did not have and my publisher, finally, the publisher was very far off, so I could not always connect with them. Maybe many things could have been little better, but never mind, it's come out. And
No, no, it's come out, and it's come out like, I mean, like, see, it's not a chronological, like, year by year, each chapter corresponding to a year. It's like a conversation, and it is a book about your reflections and your reminiscences. So, I mean, like, I even noticed that, I mean, there are certain parts that are obviously been noted down in your journals or your diaries, and you've left them as is from the time you've written them. So whether it's about, visit to a certain place, like a certain country, or when you speak about your mother passing away, and you talk about it 5 weeks ago this happened, although probably in actuality it was probably happening years later, but in your mind and at that particular point in time, it had just happened 5 weeks ago. So I like how you've kept to the honesty of that moment in the book as well.
Yes, because you are right. Most of the writing, especially the personal bits, like my mother's death or my father's death and geriatry is a word which entered my vocabulary very late. We didn't know when we were young, like you, we did not know what geriatry meant. But when I saw my father succumbing to that, he was alone. My mother had gone, and my mother had spoiled him silly, and he was quite helpless. That is when I realized what geriatry is, which I later realized. But about death, I have always been very conscious. Somehow, I was, even as a little child, I think I've mentioned this, that when I used to see a hen sort of just standing still,
Yes,
and
yes, you,
I used to
yes,
run up and down that she's going to
right.
die. I used to tell my mother, and she would say, "No, no, she'll not die, she'll be okay." And I wouldn't believe it. I'd say, "No, she's going to die, she's going to die." What did I know about death then? I was hardly 4 years old. I knew nothing what is death, but it was there with me. That I must say that I've always been aware of death, and in some treatments I've found death being very beautifully uh, sort of described. And also, I had always had this feeling, Vaishali, that death is there, but it didn't frighten me. As I said, that sometimes when in the afternoon I'd sleep, I'd feel that death is just sitting by me, wants to talk to me, and I'd wake up frightened. So, my God, kind of thing. So it's a part of life. Death is a
Yes.
part of life, and
I mean,
so there's nothing to be afraid of it. It is
it's
a part.
quite amazing that you just mentioned that it's not something that you're not frightened of. In fact, that was going to be my last question, but since it's already come up, I even wrote these exact words. I mean, like, as a prompt to the question that I'm going to ask you. And finally, you've talked very boldly and extensively about death. It doesn't frighten you, which you just said. And that's exactly what I've written, because you so obviously get that from the book, that you are not frightened of death at all, that for you it's just the next natural phase in life. But
Absolutely.
what I wanted to talk to you about was, so what about this phase before death, the golden years? Because I know you feel very, very strongly and passionately, because you just mentioned the word geriatry. And but I mean, like, but normally our association with the word, it's like, old people whiling away their time, just waiting for death to come and claim them. But it doesn't have to be so. And I know that that's something that you feel very strongly about, because we've spoken about this.
Yes, I have, because I personally think that life is a gift. It's a great gift. You go through hell, you go through all kinds of negative stuff, you go through ecstasies, you go through a variety of things, and then nature is like a backdrop for me. Nature has always been a backdrop for me, but because even in Baruipur, I could sit in the evening and watch the stars come up, or the he flies well even night, uh, Jonaki,
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 Junaki,
Jonaki,
fireflies. Junaki,
fireflies.
fireflies. Yeah.
There are just one or two here and there in the darkness. These little things, or the smell of some flower, these things meant a lot to me. It was very natural. It was not anything pretensive or anything like that. But I think for me, nature was the greatest gift. And death, I think, is nothing to be afraid of, but you have to accept the fact that death is there.
So,
Death
what
is
is it that you've been wanting to say to people who are now entering their golden years and who are now aging? I mean, I think you have a message for them, and
Yes, I do.
about, yes.
I do, in the sense that this is the message that I give myself. And I think that even though I'm already 83, I'm not afraid of being 83. And I don't know how many years I have. I have maybe 6 or 7 years, or I have 1 year or 6 months. I don't know. But I didn't want to leave it at that. I wanted to say that whatever happens, I'm going to die like everybody else. But that doesn't matter. What I wanted to say was that I wanted to make a point that my life has been good. A lot of things have happened that were not good. There are difficulties, there are problems, but all that said and done, ultimately, if you ask me, that life is a good place. Life is a good thing. Make the most of it. Don't succumb to your age. Like, don't. I am also having problems in sight or hearing and things like that. But to get, boggled by that is no good. I like to keep myself
Because
going.
there is still so much more that you can do. you can still continue to enjoy life, you can still continue to explore your passions and your hobbies. So
Absolutely,
why does it
absolutely.
mean that the moment you cross a certain age and you blow out a certain number of candles, it doesn't mean that you just stop living,
It is
right?
a fact that you have to accept that, because nobody is going to escape death. Every human being who's born in this world will die. So every that's the ultimate. So in the meantime that you have here, do what you feel like. And I feel that I should not really succumb to negativity. Even now, I sometimes think of still write some. That is one of the reasons that maybe this book is at times maybe a little shoddy or little, not quite okay. That's because I just wanted to finish it before I went, and I had already crossed 80. And I realized that if I don't do it now, no matter about the quality, or don't get upset by all this sort of thing, it is important that you finish it.
Absolutely. I'm
and
glad you
i
didn't put this on hold. I'm really, really glad you didn't put this on hold.
and I think we should keep our chins up. Oh, I'm talking to the 80 plus people and the 90 plus. There are some amazing 90 plus people also doing
Yes,
things.
yes,
I know.
absolutely. Okay.
So, Boishali, it's been wonderful talking to you, because it was not a very superficial interview, but you went into the feelings behind it. But of course,
Thank you
this is
so much. But I mean, if you don't mind, I mean, like I said, that was the last question, but I still have two or three more questions. The only
so
reason
go.
I brought that question up was because suddenly we started talking about death. But because, like I said right at the beginning, I think there's so much to learn from you and from your experiences.
I'm not very
And
sure, but
no, 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 please. Because, okay, so I've already mentioned that you've traveled extensively and you've met people from a variety of cultures and a variety of, so many countries. So, one question I'd love to know is that which was your favorite country and why? But the other more deeper question that I really want to ask you is that having mingled with so many people from so many places, what do you think binds us together? Because with the world, so certain places now at war and people still not getting along with each other, and riots and xenophobia and all that rearing its ugly head. I'm sure you've seen that there is something that binds all humanity together, and I would love to know what you saw, what makes the world beautiful.
personally, Vaishali, if you really ask me frankly, I don't think we can turn it around backwards again, because there is so much of hatred. There is so much of, I watch the news quite carefully, though I can't read the newspaper properly. But I see that in everything there is so much of negativity. That is something that is really frightening. And I don't know where it will lead the world to. We were not like this before. Maybe as you go further and further back, anyway, that's not a very good answer to what your question. But I really think that this connectivity that we have, that I am now sitting in my house, you are sitting in your house, and we are having a very nice chat about my book. Now this connectivity has many uh, what shall I say, many other ways
Layers.
of
Right.
there is negative things, negative connectivity, negative. So much is known in a matter of minutes, matter of seconds, and what somebody plots something. I'm very backward in this particular area, which you all are so good at. But I personally feel that uh, I don't think the world will go back to its initial simplicity, the simplicity that even I have witnessed in my short life. 83 is not a very great life for a human history. But even in that short life, we had been much more calm, much better together. And unless we make some kind of conscious effort, this I feel very worried. I wouldn't like to live in that world, in the future world. It's frightening.
It is frightening.
To me, I
That's not
find,
fright- that's not frightening, but the future's frightening. How ironic, isn't it?
huh?
I said death is not frightening, but the future is frightening.
Which
Isn't that
is,
ironic? I mean, like it's just so strange.
you're absolutely on the dot. Correct, as usual. But actually, it is true. The future is frightening. I feel quite scared for the rest of you guys who will have to face it, you know, because you're so much younger. It
I guess
is.
we. Mhm. You were saying something. I'm sorry. I think I
No, I
interrupted
said,
you.
if there any more questions, would you like to ask me? Or
Well, I mean, considering where the conversation has gone, this would probably be a good place to stop and to maybe ask Sushruta if there are any questions from the people who have tuned in. Because I,
So, like, there are few comments which I can see right now. I'll just read out for the viewers as well as for both of you. Shupriya Roy, I think she's a friend, right? She has.
Vaishali's friend
Boy,
also.
okay,
yes,
उन्हें
yes,
लिखे थे,
yeah.
Baripur was just great. We had so many meets there. Mona has written great interaction. Again, Shupriya Roy, she has written, me too. You were lucky to be in Shantiniketan at that time. Shubhadi Shubhapal, she has written, I'm listening. You both worked very hard to make it to happening gallery. She has written, you have a then Q&A becoming increasingly vibrant, laced with humor, loving it. Shupriya Roy, she has written, you have a great memory. Shubhadi, again, she writes, I agree with Shupriya Roy. Great. Anyways, so
You're my
Shupriya
friend.
Roy, she has written, I am 80 plus. Me too, you are great. You are our inspiration. So these are the
Supriya.
Shupriya, this is
Supriya, when she heard that she's going to interview me, she rang me this morning.
okay, great.
So she's very close to Vaishali.
No,
Okay.
she's also someone. I mean, like who exemplifies the age is just a number because I mean, like she's already
Yes,
written
yes,
two
she's
books. She's
fantastic,
working on her third. I mean, like so
and
yes, Shukriya Machi. I mean, like you are also of the same league and
her
caliber.
knowledge base is very pakka. She
Yeah,
studies when she knows, yes, if
absolutely,
history
absolutely.
of this, she's really,
Yeah,
I
another
think,
great example of someone who's following her passion. I mean, like with her reading and
yes,
her writing. I
yes,
mean,
yes,
like
yes, yes.
so
I really appreciate her very much. We're very different in nature, but we're very good friends.
I know.
So are all these people who have said nice things about me are all my good friends. Chalo, is that when will you come? Right.
I will
I just,
come very soon. I promise. I will
no,
come. I will bring you. I will
I
send
want
you.
to see some of your work.
Okay, okay, done. I will come over with some of my poetry, and we'll have a poetry art at your place.
Ekdam.
Great.
Okay.
Done,
Thanks a
done.
lot, Vaishali.
Thanks.
Bless
Not
you.
at all. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm ending the session.